the thing that separates us from our freedom, the only thing is the choice to let go of that armor, the choice to make a new thought. And that is what we do here within the Centers for Spiritual Living. And so this month, we are talking about being compassionate conduits. And I believe I mentioned this last week, but part of being a conduit is being willing to let that spirit flow through us, to let go of any ideas of how it should look, of what it's supposed to feel like, of how we're supposed to be, if we're going to be all spiritual, and how that looks in the world. And Ernest Holmes has said that one of the first things he used to hear was that our primary fear was that God would not hear our prayers. That out of all the universe, that all the people who have ever been, we individually were the ones that God could not hear. And that there was a sense of unworthiness, perhaps, that God would change things for us. And so the talk today is about motivation. And I shortened it up just to say motivated, ? And the original name had to do with how motivated is God to help us. And I find that an interesting question because in my mind, it's kind of a trick question. And I'm reminded of the story of the Prodigal Son, which is a parable told by the master teacher Jesus in what Christians would call the New Testament. And in that story, the kid goes off, gets into some wild living, everything bottoms out, and he comes back home, having been humbled. And when he sees his father, who he had kind of dissed and run off from, according to the New International Version of the Bible, it says, and the son said unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in thy sight, but am no more worthy to be called thy son. But the father said to his servants, bring forth the best robe and put it on him, put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet. Now, Ernest Holmes talks a lot about this parable in the Science of Mind textbook around page 450 to around page 475. And the metaphysical interpretation is that the Father, the infinite source of all good, the creator, whatever you want to call it, never cuts us off, never moves away from us. We might decide that we're not worthy, but the minute we turn around and say, oh, hi, I'm back, Spirit, the source of all good, is right there with all of the support and the love and the acceptance we could possibly need. If you notice in that quotation, there is no, and we're going to have to talk about this later, and you're on restriction until such and such a time, and by the way, you've already spent your inheritance, so you don't get any more. It's all, I see you, I love you, I am so glad we're hanging out together again. And yet, we as humans seem to think that God holds grudges. I don't know where we got that. I think that was when we were making God in our image, where we might hold a grudge because we're still holding on to pain or to our sense of woundedness because we haven't healed yet. But God can't be wounded. God's an infinite, all-powerful being. What are we going to do to hurt that energy, that love, that power, and that peace? We can't disturb that. And so the thing I'd like you to remember is that while love points the way, the law makes the way possible. That's a quotation that Ernest Holmes used a lot. Ernest Holmes, by the way, if you're not familiar with him, is the person who wrote our textbook and the founder of this philosophy. He was very clear he didn't create anything. He just took the best of what he could find in all the religions he had access to and kind of put them together and came up with the principles that we teach. So if love points the way, then that infinite being that we have mistakenly thought was separate from us is just saying, here, go in this direction. This is where the good is. And if we go off in another direction, all we get is that recalculating or take the next legal U-turn. The law, which is how spirit, that being that we have made in our own image, the law is how it works, how it creates. It's the activity of God. We call it the law of cause and effect. So the cause is always the thinking going on, whether we say it's in the one mind of God or in our personal minds, kind of the same difference. The law just says yes to everything we think, everything in our conscious mind and everything in our subconscious mind, everything we have agreed on as a race, as the human race. So we still believe that people can die. We still believe that wars can happen. We still believe that cancer has to be horrible and painful and terminal. And because we have agreed to these particular beliefs, the law has to say yes. But the law isn't motivated to make something good for me and bad for you. The law is just saying yes to whatever it is we believe we can individually and collectively have. And so as we are conduits, what's for us to do is make sure that we are clear conduits for that love, for that light, for the law to work through. If we are being clear conduits, then we're claiming good for everyone as well as ourselves. And there really isn't much distinction in our prayer work. So love points the way and says, your good is in this direction. The law makes the way possible by just saying yes, like we flipped on the light switch or the go button, and the law just does it. And so when I look around to try and figure out what it is we're trying to create as a human race, I look to the major themes of the different religions, and especially our holidays. We're already into the fall holidays. We're coming up on the winter holidays. And yesterday, many people around the world were celebrating something called Diwali. Diwali is, it's born out of Hinduism, I believe, and it is celebrated by lighting lights, just like most of our winter holidays here in the Northern Hemisphere. So Diwali, depending on what part of India you come from and what faith tradition you come from, is a celebration of the light over the darkness, of good defeating evil. And that might be a story about Kali or Krishna or Rama. There's a whole bunch of different versions of it. But in essence, good wins. It is a very Hollywood ending to the story, if you will. The other thing that gets celebrated is the goddess Lakshmi, who is a representation of abundance and good. And so it's also called Lakshmi Puja. And it is a celebration of the good that is. Lakshmi herself looks like this. Oh my goodness, this is heavy. She tends the hearth. She keeps the home fires burning. And she is the giver of lots and lots of wisdom. Whoops, other way. This is the lotus, which is spiritual awakening, and she's sitting on a great big one as well. And then mudras of wealth, and I believe this is meant to be a fountain, and it's backwards, a pot of good stuff. So this is Lakshmi. And we celebrate her by cleaning out our homes and making them welcoming. So cleaning the conduit, making it welcoming. And we decorate the front door so that everybody who walks in feels good. And we light lots of candles, and we light, well, actually it's oil lamps. And we light all these lights to represent that good wins. And depending on how welcome Lakshmi feels, how much she feels like she's wanted in your home, in your heart, that is how much good will show up in your world in the next year. That is the story and the mythology behind this particular holiday, or some of it. Now, again, have you ever walked in someplace you knew you were not welcome? Maybe they were talking about something they couldn't talk about in front of you, or they were talking about you, heaven forfend. And so it just wasn't comfortable to stay there. Of course, most of us either leave or want to leave when things get like that. So if you think about, if love shows up in you and you are too wounded, or there is some part of you that has bought into the belief that you don't deserve this good, of course, it's going to step back respectfully and allow you to be a conduit for whatever you want to be. It's so important to be welcoming to good. it's so important to remember that it's not whether God is motivated to see the good in us, but whether we are. Remember, the law isn't motivated one way or the other except by us. And the divine being that lives in all of our skins, that has taken this physical world on as its body, that divine being is motivated to show itself, to make sure that we can see it in the mirror every day. And so many faith traditions talk about know thyself. It's usually attributed to the Greek philosophers. Some people say it came from, before that, it came from Egypt, because one of the people that Socrates learned from was actually educated in Egypt. Know thyself is, if we truly knew who we were and how loved we are and how much love we already are, if we knew that, we would know God more clearly and more good would be able to flow. We would be motivated to act in a loving way toward ourselves and toward others. And I think the whole world could use that right now. The whole world could use more grace, as it were, that unearned good, which I call grace. All of that is something the world is hungry for right now. So last week I talked about levels of mastery in manifestation, making good things happen in our lives. And I said in the beginning, we manifest stuff. We make things show up in our lives. And as we get better and better about it, we realize that it's what that thing represents that we actually want. And so we start manifesting a certain feeling or a certain energy in our world, and we start recognizing that it's all around us. Now, that was confusing to some people, and I get that. It's very hard to take something that is beyond words and explain it clearly. So I don't expect that to have made sense to everyone. And because someone was kind enough to ask the question, I went a little deeper in my own meditation. And the image I get is that we have a lighter in one hand and a lamp in the other. And we can wander around with those things in our hands anytime we want. But when we make the choice to stop cursing the darkness and light our lamp, that is reclaiming our power to create light, taking something that is just there in as a possibility and turning it into actual energy that can be seen. When we make the choice to light our lamp, when we make the choice to create more good in our lives and to recognize that energy as a light in our lives, that is when we manifest. The law, spirit, doesn't care how long we stumble around with those things in our hands. The law does not have any motivation to fix us, because spirit does not see us as broken. That's our personal delusion. That's our shared delusion as humans, that we're somehow broken or bad or unworthy. And the minute we let go of that, there is all sorts of good available to us. The minute we can individually and collectively let go of that voice in the back of our head that says, don't be greedy, don't have too many wants, because you're going to get smacked down. And if you have good in your life, it's going to get taken away. You know, Janis Joplin said, freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. I would say that that's a very interesting affirmation. And that is not one I choose to make. And so even in the Christian Bible, it also says in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, it says, for now we see only a reflection as in a mirror, or another way of translating that would be through a glass darkly. So right now we see ourselves through a really bad mirror. Have you ever seen the old cloudy mirrors, or maybe even just a piece of shiny metal or some water? That's not a clear image. Don't try and put on your mascara and eyeliner using that. You're going to poke yourself in the eye. Now we see only a reflection in the mirror, but then we shall see face to face. For now I know in part, and then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. Spirit doesn't see us as broken, and therefore is not at all motivated to fix us. Spirit sees us as we truly are, infinitely worthy of love and good and light, infinitely worthy of the story that says what light and good win out over darkness or evil. We've decided to believe in this thing called evil as well. Socrates says to move the world, we must first move ourselves. To move the world, we must first move ourselves. And so in order to create world peace, we have to create inner peace. In order to create good and abundance and plenty throughout the land, we have to be willing to accept it for ourselves. I'll never forget, somebody told my mom that given her ability to manifest, although she was not a religious science, she had this incredible ability to manifest or demonstrate, or whatever word you want to use. That she was told that she was the one person this person had ever met who could probably just decide to win the lottery. And Mom said, no, that would be selfish of me. Why should I have that much? And everything in me went, Mom, you could just give it to your kids because I'm worthy of it. I'll take it if you don't want it. If we're not willing to accept love and peace and good and worthiness in ourselves, we're going to deny it to our neighbors and to the next generation. And as the next generation, when I was with my mom, it felt very important that she accept her good. And so in this moment, I want to take us into prayer as we accept that good for ourselves, knowing that the divine mother, divine father, Lakshmi, whoever you want to give credit to, however you want to envision this infinite being, that being sees us as perfect already. And so when we pray, we enter into agreement with that statement. This is our most powerful yes. And so I invite you to join me in prayer right now. And so if that looks like closing your eyes, great. If that looks like standing up or kneeling down or dancing about the room, that is entirely up to you. I go within and close my eyes so that I can see with the inner eye, to see more truthfully, to see that God is truly all there is. God, or good, if you prefer that name, is an infinite being, is an infinite energy, a source of infinite good. And it is all powerful within this multiverse. It is every single cell of every body. It is every single breath anyone has ever taken. It is alive. It is the intelligence within our physical forms and within the physical world. It is that energy that holds the physical world in manifestation. Jesus, the master teacher, said, I have come that they may have life and have it more abundantly. And so it is that life that we recognize as ours right now, accepting the gift of good. What I know and claim for all beings everywhere is great good. I accept having won the spiritual and the financial lottery. I accept for each and every one of us that all is well and we are loved, loving, lovable. We are capital L, love itself. We are the very essence of that active verb that is love. And because that is the truth of us, there is no more room left for hate or divisiveness or fear. This perfect love casts out all fear. There's no room for poverty. Everyone is fed and has clean water and a safe space to be. This is the truth of spirit, and therefore I claim it as the truth of all of us. Reveling in that, grateful for this absolute truth, I say yes to it all. And I just let the law get to work as I place this word I have spoken into the law, which is already saying yes. And if this has landed with you as something that you are willing to accept, I invite you to affirm with me, and so it is.